Hello everyone. Alright, so in this video I'm going to be talking about basing. I have accidentally already started. I realised I needed to record, so that's why the base has already started, but this is a process to make it look like that, but on a bigger scale. So as you've been following along, we have the Sentinel, and it will go on a big round base instead of a big rectangle. As you can see, I've started using this kind of flimsy cork material just to try and give it, hopefully it doesn't slide, a bit of elevation, a bit of uniqueness other than just a flat base that has rocks on it. So all I've done is kind of tear it away, give it some unique looks. And then it's a little bit too flat there, so then just go ahead and just tear it around so it's a bit more irregular. So done that a few times, built it up on 3 levels, these ones on 2 levels, just to kind of give it that kind of rolling hill look, or uneven ground would probably be the better way of saying that. And then what I do is go through and on this base just adding in a whole bunch of glue. This is just wood glue, but PVA glue, whatever glue really works for you. I've been using this for years now and it seems to do the job perfectly. Alright, that should do it. And then I have an assortment of rocks that I've bought from, you can see them on camera, rocks that I bought from our local, what would you call it, garden store, I guess, hardware store. So I got these ones because they're quite smooth over, and that's kind of helped me get that kind of Chinese mountain-esque look about it. So then what I do is just lay them out and kind of, I guess, jigsaw puzzle it. There's no real way about it, just kind of see what goes, I guess. Sometimes it is just a vibe. And I'm not going to probably cover the whole thing. It might only be like bits and pieces that go in. I find with basing, this is where it kind of can come alive, because you start to add detail, you add kind of a storyline basically. Your model's base isn't just a flat thing anymore, it's starting to take shape, it's starting to take form. It takes on your imagination of what the world it comes from will look like. So in regards to these guys, it's starting to look like that kind of Asian mountain top. I need a triangle-esque, like you. No, not you. Maybe something like that. Just got glue everywhere. And then probably possibly pop something along here. You look kind of interesting. We need something here. And then something over here. So I'm not trying to cover all of the base in the same material. I try to give it a variation. Maybe like you, just in the center. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, so next step is get rid of these rocks because they're in the way. So as you can see, like I haven't really used a great deal. The other ones where I bought these, goes that way, tiny little rocks. Again, same hardware store, so I dare say you should just look for them in the garden sections really. And this is where you can get a bit chaotic, I guess. I just got to be a little bit careful because they're not stuck in properly, the other rocks. I don't want to get too full on. So all this is doing is kind of adding a bit of little depth, I guess. Best way to describe it. Because eventually what will happen is these kind of flattish areas will have a lot of vegetation, but for these little smaller areas where there are holes or there's divots in that, makes it a perfect space to put what do you call it, gamer's grass. So when making these, what I'm trying to do is replicate what would happen out in the wild. Having an interest in the landscapes that I see on walks or when I'm on holidays, vegetation will find kind of like the path of least resistance. So yes, they will grow up around here where it's flat, but like where dirt can pull in to crevices, that's where they'll start to grow, not on flat rocky areas like this or this. So yeah, so now we just push that one to the side and wait for that to dry. Paint it up and put the vegetation on it last. I'll be back soon. Alright, so I've gone ahead and done a few things to this base. So I've added sand where the cork areas were, just to kind of soften them up, make them more dirt looking, I guess you could call it. I then went ahead and gave it a black spray paint undercoat, and then a base coat of Vallejo, yep, that's it, 72.061 khaki, and then went ahead and gave that an Agwax Earthshade wash over top, and now we're at where we are. For this part, it's kind of like a dry brush dash wet blend. I use these little brushes from Vallejo. Basically a makeup brush will do from your local supermarket or big store like Target, Kmart, Big W. I don't know what else there is in the world, but that's like that. But basically you're looking for that kind of rounded brush. I find it gives you a more softer blend, hence makeup brush. So yeah, going through, what I tend to do is put the paint on piece of paper towel. You can use plastic, you can use whatever you want. I find paper towel works for me, just to get those bristles with enough paint that it coats it but doesn't go overboard. It's hard to explain. And then I go heavy with this one. Like, people watching this will probably be like, oh, you're getting rid of all the details in the wash, but so long as the wash is in like the recesses, that's the main thing I'm after. So just going a bit probably rough. This is the way I do it. It's worked so far for me with the other bases I've done. The end result is kind of a softer, smoother looking stone rock, I guess, compared to if I just did light dry brushes. I find also this technique is good when you've had a real bad day. Can take it out on the base. I normally have gloves on when I do this because I don't like getting paint all over my hands. Yes, I'm a hobbyist that likes to wear gloves. So now I'm just going to all the different angles, making sure I get everything right in my eyes. Down there. All right. For the first coat, I think that's pretty good. Sorry, that's my chair clicking. All right. You probably picked up on it, there's grooves here. So I don't know how well this will go on camera, but basically that's where I've mapped out for his feet to go. Normally I don't set grooves, but this time I have, for the simple reason of on these corky areas is going to be a lot of grass. I don't know where I put it, but there's grass anyway. And normally what I do is I glue them on top, so they're standing on top of the grass. But this one, I wanted it to look like there was a denseness to the grass, so that when you put your foot on it, it sinks in the grass, like shows that impression of a foot sinking into lush grass. So that's what I'm going for this time. Hopefully that comes out right. Otherwise, it was a failed attempt. But tried something new. Alright, so, sorry. Next up is more glass bone. I'm just seeing if I got more. Might have to get some more. Yeah, so same deal. Just getting paint into those bristles. And then this is where I start to go lighter. On big pieces like the cork, I generally try and just do the edges and leave the insider area dark. To me, it just gives a nicer finish, a bit more depth. And then we start with the rocks. So I'm just doing circular motions. Find out what works for you. You might find backwards and forwards, or a flicking motion might work for you. I've just found circles works for me. Especially with these type of rocks, because they're so smooth. Also, while you're doing this, try and mimic where light would hit. So don't do all the rock. Try and mimic, where light would hit down. So for me, most of my models are painted with a light source above them, but I've touched base in this, I've touched base in this in other videos. I believe it was when I was doing the captain, about different directions of light source. So if you've got it coming from the front top, you're gonna have a lot of shadows at the back. And then obviously the reverse of that is if you've got it from behind, there's going to be a lot of shadows in the front. If this had lava, then you'd have light source coming up. So you just got to remember where your light source is coming from to get the right look. So for me, straight down is basically midday sun is where I paint for. I just find that gives you the best kind of definition. But as I've said in previous ones, experiment with it. Just brighten those up a little bit. There we go. Let's give them a bit more brightening up. I do really like these smooth rocks. They give good texture, even though they're smooth. All right. Next step is game color Vallejo again, 72.034, which is bone white. Again, same thing, put it on paper towel. So what I'm doing also is not only am I charging my brush, but I want to make sure that the color's not too dark from blending up. Yeah, it's good. And then again, focusing more on those edges. Some more. That's better. Now don't be worried that there's darker spots in between. They're going to be filled up with grass, shrubs, other various materials. So don't feel like every square inch has to be painted. Well, that's how I go about doing bases. So long as you're building up those gradients, that's all that matters. Now you can stop here. Where's my colors? Oh, there they are. So I go over with the last Vallejo color, which is 72.001, which is dead white. And this just gives it that kind of nice, creamy white colored look. Which I found closely replicates the resource imaging I've found online for those kind of Chinese mountaintops. And don't worry, yes, it does look very stark, but trust me, it works. That's if you're doing these colors. If this doesn't do it for you, experiment with what colors you want. It's the main thing with this hobby is just experiment with anything and everything. Find what works for you, and then go with it. So I'm probably putting a bit too much detail in these areas here because I'm going to be covering them up eventually, but I'm just future proofing myself just in case there are parts where there aren't as much grass as I was expecting. At least now they're kind of covered. think that might do it. Is that enough white? Yeah, it's enough white. All right. Next section will be the grass and shrubs and stuff. So that will come next. Okay. So next step with this base is the vegetation. So all I use for this is good old super glue. You can use PVA glue, wood glue, super glue, whatever glue you want. I just find super glue works for me. Gamer's grass. My go-to for this army so far is this kind of olive green, grey, beige colour. For these areas here that were cork bark, I'm gonna do a blend of more lively grass, just to show that kind of meadow look, I guess, and to show that that's got better soil than what's amongst all the rocks, where this other grass would have to kind of be a bit more harsher and resilient. Also, I've got this old bag of Woodland Scenics bushes. So, I don't know where that went. So it's kind of like this, I don't know what you call it, like spongy material. And it just looks good as shrubs. So let's go with what? Let's go with the grass first. So normally I don't pull all these off all at once. I generally pull them off as I'm going. But because this is a bigger base, it's just less work I have to do. Also, it just helps me understand what shapes I'm working with. I'll pop them in. Alrighty, so starters, let's pop some here. So yes, I know they have a sticky side, but just to make sure that they are definitely going to stay on, I use super glue, so that way I know that they're going to stay. With these small bases, I just use my scalpel, sharp blade up, because I don't want to cut. I just want to kind of jab it in, make sure it's glued. Move the other way. Let's go here. And again, what I'm doing is trying to mimic what I would see if I was out in the landscape. So grasses, hardier grasses like this will grow in like the crevices here, or these like areas where when there's wind, dirt will pile up in those areas, and that's gives life to these grasses. They won't have good root structures, but they'll have life. So pop some in there. Let's go with that one. And like, as you can see, it's already starting to come to life. Get this nice thin one. And don't forget, you don't have to fill every nook and every cranny, because you do have to put the shrubs down. Also, the more overboard you go with it, the less realistic it will look. So, as the saying goes, less is more. Nope, we need a small piece. And we need a piece where it's next. Maybe like here. Yeah, there. No, that one. Maybe we go one in here. And this just shows what I was saying about when I was painting it. Don't worry about getting every area painted up, because it's all getting covered up anyway. I feel like just there needs some grass. Which way do you go? Also, because I've used a brown wash, it does kind of look like dirt down there, so it plays to it. So already with that little bit of grass, it's already starting to come to life. I feel like something needs to be here. Question is, can I get it in there? Yes. Maybe, I think that might do it for the grass. Yeah, let's do some of these shrubs. So like, just take that bit off and dab it in. So this will be a lot harder because the grass was easier to stick down because it has a flat surface. This shrubby stuff tends to want to hook onto the sculpin and rip up. So just be patient with it. Also, I tend to break chunks off of it. Yeah, you look like a good piece. No, you're a bit too big actually. Here. That's where that big piece can go, just in there. Also, I find with inspiration for bases, if you're going for a walk, for a walk near your place or somewhere on holiday, take photos of anything and everything. The amount of times that I have taken photos on holidays and gone, oh, that would look like a really great base. Don't know what for, but it would look like a really great base. And then it might not be until months later you're like, oh, actually that would look amazing. Like, for example, I went to a place called Flinders Island. It's just off the coast of Tasmania here in Australia, if you're not from Australia. And they've got this shoreline that has big boulders, kind of like this color here, but they've got this weird moss that's growing on it. So it's like bright oranges and dark grays. And I thought that would look really awesome as a base. Trying to work out a theme for it. So people would probably automatically think Deepkin because it's ocean themed. But I started painting up my Seraphon and I was going for a beach themed, and the colors just worked perfectly with the dinosaur mounts. It looked awesome. So yeah, like that was 2 years ago, I think it was. And I think it was like a couple months later I started painting that army. So moral of the story is just take photos of any landscape you can find, because who knows when you'll use it. And I find real world references are so much better than what you see on the internet. So, for example, that Flinders Island, I got to see it, experience it, I got to understand how it should look in that daylight, what colors would work best, and started working out that while I was there. Whereas this, I'm going off just an image I found on, I think it was Pinterest. So I'm going by a snapshot, not a 360 view of the area that I was in. So keep that in mind. Let's got a nice big chunky chunk in there. Let's probably put one there. So again, with this, I don't want to go overboard and cover every crack with vegetation, because then that will start to detract from it. It's kind of like a nice sparseness going on. I'll add one more just here. Yeah, nice. All right, so the best thing about basing materials is, like, this bag I've had since I first started back in, good Lord, when was that? 2003? Is that right? 2003? I was 13. Yes, 2003. Something like that. So, basing materials I find will last you for ages. Except for gaming grass. That this stuff goes quite quickly. And it's not cheap. Alright. So I'm just cleaning off my area. And now we're working on these areas. So I need this one, this one. So I'm going to be alternating between the two. So I probably could put down PVA for this, but I want this done super quick. So I was going to use a flock, which is like ground up, that shrub material, but like really ground up. But I decided against it because one, it would have been really flat, and two, I just don't think it would have given me that nice full lushness that I'm looking for, like these gamer grass does. So what I'm doing is I'm just alternating between the two. Just so then that way it's not all one color. It does kind of look somewhat mixed. I know it's probably going to look a little bit on the stripy side, but that doesn't matter to me. You look at grass and it's not all one color, it's patches of colors. So, yeah, that looks good. It looks like it's squishing it down. Yes. All right, I'm gonna need more of that color. Where did I put it? All right. Yeah, that looks good. Do a nice big green one just there. And the best part about this is you get to get really creative with this. So go nuts. Try different styles, different techniques, different grasses. See what works for you, what doesn't. Because really, the worst thing that happens is you have to rip it all off and start again. The worst thing that could happen is you wasted all that time on something that didn't look right, but hey, could have been worse. Could have wasted that time doing other stuff that you don't like doing. This is rewarding. We're going with another green. For me, I find basing is what I like to do. I feel like it tells a story. You can also make or break a miniature, I've found. So, for instance, let's say maybe just a little. Sorry, I'm like in the zone at the moment. Yeah, nice. So for instance, let's say you have a miniature with like this, just flat black. I know some people would do that, and that's fine. That's fine by them, fine by me for them to do that. It's not my hobby. But for me, I like a base that's thematic, that's going to enhance the miniature in question. So like Grand Cathay is very Chinese looking. So I want something that kind of looks like that's where they come from. In regards to like my Seraphon, my Troggoths, I've given them a beach theme, maybe something that doesn't really go with them, but I've kind of given them a backstory of that's the area they're from and that's what they're fighting on, so that's the landscape they'll be situated on, which will be their bases. So it just kind of, a base can tell a story, which I find is amazing. You're too big. Yeah. Get off. Let's go with you. So as I said before, like I probably didn't need to detail these rocks, this cork area, because as you can see they're getting covered with grass, but it just gives it a bit more depth. If I didn't do that, it would look kind of flat. I think just there needs some more. Yeah. Yeah, it's better. better. What do we got? Yeah, nice. And maybe just a green one just down here. That needs a bit more something. Oh no, I've got glue on my hands. Yeah, I think that's good. So then what I do next is the fun part. It's gluing this bad boy onto his base. And now it looks like he's kind of squishing the grass down, which looks great. All right, now comes the hard part. So yes, I've probably gone a little bit overboard with glue, but I just want to make sure he is gonna stay. Hold it down, hold it down, hold it down, and hopefully, ta-da! He's done. Well, the base, that is. Groovy. All right, all that's left now is to rim the edge of it with Rhinox hide, just to give it that kind of cutout look of dirt. And then he's basically done. I've just got some other stuff I need to do paint-wise on him. But yeah, that's the base done.